Welcome to the Change Within podcast. This is Gerard Uselli here, episode 9. This has been a movement in motion as we've been going on and forward to talk with so many people throughout the country. It has been such a surreal experience, and being that this is our 9th show, we have our next guest, a great friend of mine, Alyssa D'Agosto. Alyssa, how are you doing today?
Sure, Jerry. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
I'm a little nervous, so.
Well, this is the first time anyone's been nervous, and you've known me the longest out of all of my guests. So it's kind of like a bestowed honor in itself on that one, right?
Exactly.
So something that I guess we could both resonate on right off the bat, both Staten Islanders growing up. What was your childhood like?
Oh, my childhood. I mean, I can't complain at all. I grew up with a loving family. I went to wonderful schools. I was a nerd in school. I was always on honor roll, perfect attendance awards and all of that. So totally a nerd, which I guess I was like my own self-fulfilling prophecy, because even now I'm still hesitant to take days off from work because I just want to be like attached to my computer at all times. So
I totally get that. So in that regards, and I kind of had this do-gooder type of ordeal when I was growing up too, but there's always slips in the cracks. What was one time when you were growing up and you were just like, I really want to do something to rebel, but then it's kind of like you're in that trickle effect as far as if you're going to do it or not?
You know, I would have to say that's really difficult. That's a difficult question. I have to say, I really didn't do too much as like a kid as being rebellious. I think the worst I've ever done was like stole a pair of scissors from my mom and cut my bangs. So my hair just looked like a freaking mess with my, for school pictures or something. So I think that was like the extent of my rebellion.
So you were expressing your Zoom fatigue before anyone else.
Exactly.
To kind of like break down what you're doing now, being that you've been in the nonprofit field for the last 3 or 4 years, I was curious about this with your childhood. What was your first charity experience like, and how did it make you feel to help others?
Yeah, oh, that's such a good question. I actually love sharing this story. It took me a while to get into the nonprofit field. I would have to say that I wasn't 100% sure that that's exactly what I wanted to do right away, being in school. So I had gotten my first internship when I was in undergrad for a marketing consultant, and I was basically her assistant, and she was working on a gala for a nonprofit in Queens. So she had me doing just basic administrative work for the gala, but I actually was able to go to the gala and really see it from start to finish, get the honorees that were winning awards. And seeing it just come into full effect really made me realize, like, wow, I actually love that the funds that were raised were going to a great cause. So that was like my first real experience, and I want to say I was probably about 20. So I was still very like young in my career. And I was really happy to see that I was able to have that experience, because then I was like, okay, I know that this is what I want to do upon graduation. I know I want to find myself, in a nonprofit. So that was awesome.
Also, a follow-up on that. So I've kind of can relate to this experience as well, doing galas like within my early 20s and also doing a lot within the nonprofit world, especially growing up around that time. What was the pressure like being a college student, having to probably run the door at charity events quite a few times before you actually got out there in the administrative force?
Yeah. Oh my God. I remember those like 18-hour days where you were working a part-time job to pay for school and go to school and then do your internship hours. And I have to say, if it did anything for me, it taught me time management. Because now up until today, I'm still kind of like, all right, I remembered what it was like to work from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and then go to class at 4 and make sure that I submitted all my spreadsheets to my internship on time. So that time management is definitely what helped shape me today.
Definitely. And from that point moving forward, like even if it was the gala or any other scenario when you were starting off doing nonprofit, like what made you want to really spearhead that as like your career choice?
I think seeing the fact that all the work that you were putting into it, there was an outcome, even whether it was $1 or $1 million, so that money that you were raising was going towards something, to a greater cause. It's very easy to work for a for-profit, but the non-for-profit, you really have to have your heart in it. So I really felt like I was able to connect with my colleagues, with my supervisors, but even with the community. And it's just great now seeing people and talking to people and really starting to get to know people's stories and seeing where their stories align with, a nonprofit's mission. So I have to say, I think just like knowing that there's a greater cause for all the work that you're doing and all the extra hours that you're putting in really was what, made me say, okay, this is it. This is the path. And I have to say, Jerry, I do want to give a shout out. You totally have been talking about nonprofits from when we were children. So I remember knowing that nonprofits were the way to go from jump. So
you're fundraising for me at this point. Change of him podcast,
exactly.
nonprofit now. That's how it's going.
Exactly.
So I'm sure the business community can completely agree with me on this. There's certain pathways as far as making a name for yourself in Staten Island. There's different trade shows and conferences that are essential that everyone knows about here that go to at least a few times to get their name out there. So for you, what was kind of like the first time you got like that break of exposure working in your field?
So there were a couple. I don't remember exactly the first one. I know that I've been to, alongside my previous supervisor, we had gone to a lot of networking events. We've gone to other agencies' galas. I went to the SIEDC's conferences, the Staten Island Chamber of Commerce's conferences as well. I know that my biggest, break was that my organization has a Disability Ally Initiative workshop that we go out in the community, go to schools, go to community-based organizations, other nonprofits, small businesses, and teach accessibility and equity for the disability community. So honestly, by doing that from the beginning of my nonprofit experience at PCCS, that's where now people are like, oh, I know you did that training and that was amazing, that training. I want to bring it back to my organization. So that was definitely my first, memorable experience.
Something memorable that I would like to share with our audience is, especially when we were doing karaoke events together, maybe about 2 to 3 years ago, something that I noticed right off the bat, the individuals in your program, they really know how to have a good time. Like they know how to have fun. They embrace themselves. It was one of the most inspiring things I've ever seen.
Thank you. Yeah, I have to say, up until now, we all are still missing our karaoke nights, and I appreciate your support every time because it was really great. And I even think that like events like that really just even brought myself and my colleagues out of our comfort zone. I didn't come into this job thinking I'd be like emceeing karaoke nights or emceeing galas and making speeches in front of 200 people. So it's just nice to be in a space where it's like a judgment-free zone and we're just all here to have fun and we all are here for the same mission. So yeah, we definitely are missing that at this point in time.
Interesting follow-up question with the speech. So, as I've had to make many speeches myself and you going through the same motions, what was one time where you've written a speech, you think you have it prepared, then you kind of go into a halt, but then at the same time, you kind of dig your way out of it? Have you ever had one of those scenarios happen to you before?
It's so funny. I feel like I'm so much better just talking off the cuff than with a prepared speech. And I have to say, up until we had to go virtual, I had been pretty okay with making my speeches. I felt like I was pretty prepared, but we've been doing our Disability Ally workshop that I was talking about. We've been doing it virtually. And a couple of times, I guess maybe like from working from home, I almost felt like I was sitting there and I'm like, I don't know what the next slide was supposed to say, and I don't know what to do. And I almost just had a moment of like, I don't know. So that was pretty much it. But I feel like I'm better off not preparing and just going with it.
Who wants to have your screen shares be a bunch of freeze frames after a while too, right?
Exactly. You want to make it a little dynamic somehow.
So speaking of hobbies, we were just talking about karaoke. One great scenario that I've witnessed you doing is Zumba. So I wanted to know a little bit more about your background with that and how you've used Zumba as like a platform just to engage with the community at large.
Yeah, oh, Zumba. Was always just, it really was just a hobby. I had started doing Zumba probably my late teens, early 20s, just kind of just as a workout routine, because I wasn't really athletic like ever. um, so after a while of me doing Zumba for many years and joining the gym and taking a lot of Zumba classes, I decided, okay, you know what, maybe I should become an instructor, because I really feel like I found my niche. So once I got certified, I decided to work with our day hab program at PCCS, and we would do Zumba for day hab on Mondays pre-quarantine. So we would do that every Monday, and I had my squad ready to dance for the morning, and it was awesome. And we also did a couple of Zumba fundraisers throughout the years also, which was really nice because he was like able to bring that health and fitness and dancing and just not caring what anybody thinks. Like, it doesn't matter if you can't dance, like, we're just here to have fun and, you know, raise money too. Like, you know, we made it a fundraiser, and there was some nice raffle prizes too.
Something we both came into discovery at the same time was using the platform Mobile Cause, and it's such a great text to donate opportunity to engage with individuals who really want to make a difference in such a convenient way. What was kind of like your first experience using that, and what was the most you've taken advantage of using something like that for your fundraising?
So Mobile Cause, we used it for our gala in 2019 for the text, specifically for the text to donate option. And I have to say, it was something so, the concept was so easy, but it was something so new for me that I felt like I had to keep doing like test runs to make sure that I knew exactly like the platform inside and out. But it was really awesome because it just made the experience for donating, and it made it more dynamic and more interesting and really convenient. You know, in a world where like carrying cash isn't really a thing anymore, you were able to just kind of like whip out your phone and get your PayPal information in there, and you know, you were supporting the cause. So we used it for our gala, and it was great. And honestly, we made it more of an interactive piece where like the DJ kept making sure to put in the plug, like, hey, don't forget, we have a mobile cause, text to donate. So that was pretty cool.
Absolutely. And just considering the nonprofit world, when you were talking about like the 18-hour days, there are some comparisons, especially around event season traditionally, where that does come into effect. How do you prioritize health?
That's very difficult. I'm more so I'm an early bird. So I would be the one to, especially during event seasons, I'd wake up 5 a.m., 6 a.m., get like a quick workout in before getting my day started. Um, Although if you ask me during event season, I definitely didn't have my mental health and my physical health were not in check at that point. But yeah, I really do try to make that a priority. So I would try to adjust my sleeping schedule, which eventually caught up with me too. But it was temporary.
I totally understand that. Just an opinion from my end, something I've always been curious about for people who don't like workout before their events. I feel like it's a missed opportunity to calm like a lot of anxiety and nerves, because think of it this way, you're releasing an absorbent amount of endorphins as you're doing your cardio, as you're lifting weights. It's such a stress reliever. So think of it this way, you're going to have this pent up anxiety with no sense of physical activity beforehand. I wonder what like that difference is. Like, let's say for you, if you were doing an event with no workout, like how would you feel? Kind of like as a
Oh,
hypothetical.
oh yeah, no, it could never happen. I know for a fact every gala we've had, every fundraiser we've had, every karaoke night, there has always been quick 30-minute cardio workout just to release that stress, because that is a 1000%. Fitness has always been my therapy, basically. That has always been my go-to for stress. So 100% I agree.
I also think of this too. I don't know if you watch any Joe Rogan at all. So knowing of his like routines and his habits, you could tell like in such conflicting conversations, he's able to keep such a calm temperament no matter who he talks to. And that was kind of like my template of inspiration of kind of carrying forth the same sense of like measurements.
Love that. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's great. I have to say though, that's amazing because I could honestly tell you I can work out and I'm still kind of like jittery and like jumping out of my skin. But I can't imagine not working out and knowing what that might feel like. So I admire people that have a temperament like that. Honestly, you know, fitness or not, it's incredible.
Absolutely. And with many temperaments unhinged, as far as especially going through the pandemic, things are very up in the air and they're unpredictable, even amid having like the vaccines and things of that sort. So, what I'm curious about you is my final question is how do you want to change the future moving forward?
Oh, that's a loaded question, Jerry. We had to save the best for last. Um, I would just like to see people being kinder to each other. I ultimately would love if the world can just kind of empathize for a few. I know that I've been told sometimes I'm humble to a fault. Sometimes I empathize too much, where suddenly I'm like, I'm struggling with the person at that point. But I kind of just feel like people need to take a walk in someone's shoes for a day because, you know, everyone's trying their best. Everyone deserves to be celebrated for even just the smallest thing. So I would just like for the world to just celebrate each other a little bit.
Yeah, and kind of as a follow up on that, and I kind of had like this debate with somebody a while back as far as how much you should celebrate. And I always say it really takes the smaller celebrations to understand how far you've come.
I completely agree. And that's funny because I've gotten feedback before from people that I supervise and people who supervise me and you know just in general that there's a precedent that I feel that everyone should have that you shouldn't have to celebrate. But I feel like, you know what? You woke up this morning.
Right.
You came to on a professional level, like you came to work with a smile on your face. That takes a lot, especially during a time like this. Like we're in a pandemic. We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So I 100% agree. Like it doesn't take a lot to just say great job, you're doing amazing, or saying I'm here for you for both the good and the bad. So let's talk about it. It doesn't always have to be bad.
Absolutely. And as a wrap up, tomorrow is always a new day of change. And I want to thank you so much for coming on the Change Within podcast. For those who don't know, you can check us out on Anchor, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at the Change Within podcast. Alyssa, thank you again. Have a great night.
You